Lego. So, welcome back to Gender in Jakarta. I'm Fadina.
And I'm Tuto.
And today we'll be talking about education.
Education. So what about education? I mean, both of us have had, I guess, somewhat of a lucky break in terms of what we gained in education. But then I guess it's good for us also to see how the country is doing.
So, during my job, I also actually cover the education sector, and so I talk to a lot of ministry people and also a lot of teachers, and sometimes I talk to students too, and a lot of them say that there are, well, a lot of problems to our education system, especially from elementary to high school.
Well, basically in Indonesia, um, we still, or at least most of the Indonesians I know, still adhere to this very long-held maxim of, get an education. The higher your degree, the more settled you are in life.
The more you earn.
On the one hand, our education is all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's working, but on the other hand, there's this huge disparity again between the lower class and middle class and the higher class. And probably not too much between the middle and higher classes, but definitely lower class.
I mean, there are also issues with gender roles, which is not explored much, unfortunately, because most of the focus we have now is on how much students are achieving instead of what is actually being taught as life lessons, I guess.
So, like, how is Indonesia doing education-wise then?
So according to the World Bank, Indonesia has the third largest education system in the whole of Asia, and we also have the fourth largest education system in the world, behind China, India, and the US. We have around 50 million students, 2.5 million teachers, and 250,000 schools nationwide.
Nationwide, okay.
So we can look at Indonesia's current education system in two ways. First, in terms of the enrollment ratios, and second, in terms of academic achievement. So if we're talking about enrollment, we're doing pretty okay. According to the OECD, the gross enrollment for elementary schools in 2013 to 2014 was around 110%, and while secondary schools is around 96%. Basically, the gross enrollment ratio talks about how many students in the whole how many children in the whole country are actually enrolled in the grade level that they're assigned to. So there might be more than 100% depending on whether or not a student has repeated a year or whether they are a bit younger or older than the age range that they're actually in.
So as long as they're in school, I guess that's the point, yeah?
It's good, And apparently expectations for both genders to stay in school is pretty high. According to the UNDP Gender Inequality Index, which we talked about last episode, in 2013, women were expected to stay in school for around 12.8 years, while men were expected to stay in school for 12.7 years.
Well, the thing is, even though our expectations for children to actually be in school are pretty high in both genders, I guess. The thing is, the number of people who graduate from high schools is actually only a little more than 50%. So that's a huge drop from secondary, or at least elementary, into secondary school. One study by the Central Statistics Agency in 2013 on the percentage of people who finish high schools, it shows that 53.85% of men finish high school versus 54.4% of women who finish high school. It's a complete high school, yeah. Another BPS study in 2013 about the percentage of people who had a university degree, so nationwide, and from the entire population, it's actually just almost 6%. 5.58% for men and 5.49% for women, which is wow.
It's pretty horrifying.
It is, but I mean, on a positive note, our literacy isn't all that bad. In the same study, the literacy rate of the population for 15-year-olds and more, and above, sorry, in 2013 is 94.14%. So, in terms of literacy, I think you can see how our school system, our education system is still working to some extent. We still
We're scoring pretty
yeah,
okay.
yeah, we have
for
a high
literacy.
literacy rate, so our education's all right. It's working.
I mean, you could say it's working, but at the same time, is it? The OECD conducts a triannual test for around 65 countries worldwide.
Yeah.
It's called the PISA, or the Program for International Student Assessment. And in 2012, which was the last PISA that was conducted, Indonesia was the second lowest out of 65 countries.
Yikes.
So this test, the PISA, it tested around 510,000 students worldwide, and they were all 15-year-olds.
Okay, so in that same age group. So, yeah.
And the fact that we scored so low means that we are 3 years behind in terms of education. The PISA test also found that female Indonesian students scored better in the Bahasa Indonesia, which is in the Indonesian language subject, while male students excelled more in science.
Let's go back to the fact that we have so many dropouts, from starting off from elementary school into secondary and into tertiary. We get less students. And why is this? Like, why is there so many people dropping out? And we have a survey by the ACDP. They made a review of a decade of what's called the gender mainstreaming in education in Indonesia, and males with low-income households are more likely to drop out due to poverty and family pressure to earn, well, basically income to earn and to start their own family, basically. Yeah. Meanwhile, for female students, for the women, for the girls out there, early marriage is ranked, I guess, one of the largest or the biggest reasons why they drop out, because it's stipulated in the 1974 marriage law in Indonesia, which legitimizes the marriage of 16-year-old girls with parental consent, of course. So there's always that choice that parents have to make, and whether or not to continue or to provide education, further education, or whether they just marry them off, and that contributes to a lot, I guess.
I guess so.
So these two gender tropes are, we also talked about this in the last episode. These tropes, they disadvantage both genders, both ways, and can be a hindrance to stay in school, especially those in the lower class.
I mean, so we talked about the dropouts, but what is it actually like in school, though? So, are there actually any gender disparities? So if we go back to the PISA test, that showed that girls achieve better in the Indonesian language subjects, while guys achieve better in science. Well, the ACDP cited a 2009 National Socio-Economic Survey, which found that boys actually read less compared to girls. According to this study, among junior secondary school students, so junior high school students, only around 17% of boys actually said that they read storybooks, while 22% of girls read storybooks. Furthermore, the percentage of girls who read newspaper daily was much more than guys.
So there's also this question of gender representation in our education. Like, you have to ask yourself, like, how are the genders being represented in our children's textbooks? So there's actually a study for that. A 2011 policy brief by the National Planning Agency, and in conjunction with the ANU in Australia, they did a policy brief, and the study found that public figures in 83 textbooks were predominantly male, and this is even more so the truth for sixth graders textbooks. While for women, women were predominantly depicted in domestic roles, or this is also the case in sixth graders books for some reason. For instance, like males were shown to be, they were shown as doctors, they were shown as telecommunications experts, whereas for women, you would see pictures of them doing chores, basically, that for, you know, fulfilling that stay-at-home mom kind of stereotype. There was even one point where the policy brief noted that even when women were depicted in, like, say, science books, which is a more of a male-dominant, male-dominant field, women, they were depicted doing chores still. For instance, how in one case there was a woman who was cooking so that she could explain the sources of heat. So that's, yeah, I mean, you could do better than that.
Yeah,
really.
exactly. I mean, apart from actual gender representation in textbooks, there's also the problem of teachers and counselors actually encouraging male and female students to stick to their stereotypes, basically. And ACDP surveys found that career counselors or teachers even for senior secondary students were actually discouraging female students from pursuing sciences, for example, or math subjects, like in exchange for subjects such as languages and social sciences. In the end, the survey found that this was part of the reason why we find so many women in administration fields or child development, education, whereas guys were in engineering, business,
technology,
you know, all those manly careers.
Yeah. Really, is there a bright side to it? And it turns out there is a bright side to it too, because the same policy brief showed that there have been increasing numbers of images depicting men and women in the same, I guess, same environment. But this is more particular to English textbooks for some reason that we have yet to find.
Yes.
And I mean, this would help promote gender equality to an extent, and in the long run, if children keep getting exposed to such images. But it's still quite limited to these English textbooks. I don't know why. You know, why English? Why not Russian or German? But yeah, it begs the question that, you know, if you really want these gender stereotypes to disappear, then you need to equally distribute this kind of representation in our textbooks.
Right now, the fact that it's not, people are not represented equally shows that the government, probably our education system, whoever sorts out our curriculum, doesn't actually think that this gender disparity, gender roles is an urgent issue, you know? And, one side note, in the textbooks there has also been an increasing number of images and messages showing how, on sexual harassment and consent and the importance of it.
Yes, that.
There have actually been images of and messages showing how important it is to report incidences of sexual harassment, whether or not you've experienced it or whether or not you've witnessed someone being sexually harassed. And this is good, it means we're improving, and consent is important, but at the same time we can't downplay the importance of sex education in schools, which we currently don't have at all.
Non-existent at the moment.
So, I mean, I guess in conclusion, there are still a lot of issues that are unexplored or overlooked, especially in terms of gender in our education system, and this will probably affect our children's futures in education and also career prospects. So, that's all for our episode. It's our third episode, guys.
Wow. Thank you for watching. Please tell your friends, tell your family, tell whoever would be interested in anything we're talking about. I'm hoping that there's someone out there who's interested.
Yeah, and especially to do with education, if you have your own experiences about how you felt at school, maybe, or if you're a teacher yourself and you feel like you're the only one concerned about teaching generals, you know.
Yes, step up.
Or if you have any suggestions of what other episodes we should do,
Yes,
please
please drop us a line
comment.
on the bottom, and we'll also put down the links to whatever data we use today. And well, we're hoping for your comments.
Yes, so we'll see you next time. See you guys.
Bye.